Hello and welcome to Mabinda TV. So for now, I'd like to look at Ibrahim Traore. Is Ibrahim Traore going to be the savior of Africa? So you've seen Ibrahim Traore, the president of, that is the military president of Burkina Faso. So is Ibrahim Traore going to be the president of Africa? I just think that Africa has very good leaders, but then they are the good leaders in Africa basically are killed by the West. So you had Muammar Gaddafi, you had Kwame Nkrumah, whose young pro-African government was overthrown by the CIA. So you have Muammar Gaddafi, you have Kwame Nkrumah, you have Thomas Sankara. Thomas Sankara ruled for just 4 years. That's why I think Ibrahim Traore is a reincarnation of Thomas Sankara. And Thomas Sankara was killed by his friend and compatriot, that is Thomas Sankara was killed by his friend and compatriot, that is Blaise Compaoré. So basically, I think Africa's biggest problem is lack of leadership. That is, I think the biggest problem that Africa has is lack of leadership. We don't have leadership that can go a great length towards making sure that Africa is able to project its weight. And I think if you look at it keenly, basically Ibrahim Traore, he is facing attempts on his life. That is, Ibrahim Traore, he is facing attempts on his life. Basically, a soldier came recently and then was given $5 million to eliminate Ibrahim Traore. So you can see very much that the West does not want good leaders for Africa. Sometimes I think the Western countries, the colonizers, did not want to give Africa independence. They simply wanted to place puppets so that they could control them. And these puppets, I think, have done a tremendous disservice to Africa. This is why I think Africa very much needs to adopt a policy. That is, I think Africa needs to adopt a policy that we need leaders that work for us. Our leaders basically serve the Western masters. That is, our leaders basically serve the Western masters. They don't work for us. That is why if a leader comes along and wants to empower his people, then basically he will be shown the door. He will be shown the door. And I don't think that is how you empower your people. So I think Ibrahim Traore is making all good strides, and I think France has to be told you cannot be doing this to your former colonies. I think France has to be told you cannot be doing this to your former colonies. Basically, France is basically France. I think has been behind the coups in West Africa. That is, I think France has been behind the coup, has been behind removing talented African presidents, and I think this is not something that we should be playing right on. So I think right now Africa has to have a culture of good leaders. I think if we fix the leadership problem in Africa, then basically I think we will be in good strides. That is, if we fix the leadership challenges in Africa, and then we will be in great strides. That's how to be able to position Africa so that we can really grow our economy. We need a political renewal, we need economic renewal, we need social cultural renewal. That is what Africa needs. We need all these three elements correct. That is political, economic, and social cultural renewal. So I think a lot of Pan Africanists are watching the steps of Ibrahim Traore and wishing him well so that he can come and really liberate Africa. And I think when he does that, and then Africa will be in very good state. So I think when Africa is finally liberated, that is when we will be with our people. That is, our people are basically living in very squalor conditions, while our leaders don't care a thing. They just care about serving their Western masters, but they don't protect us. They don't do so much for us. That is why Africa has puppets. Our leaders don't do anything good for us. Our leaders basically just our leaders really do nothing for us. They really are a disgrace to Africa, and this is why I think that Africa has to be able to basically try and be able to make sure that it has the leadership challenges we fix. That is why I think that Africa has to be able to. That is why I think that Africa has to be able to have good leaders. And I think when we have good leaders, our economies will grow by double digit year on year for 30 years. This is not a domain of the Asian tigers. Look at China. It lifted 500 million people out of poverty in a record 25 years. I think the same happened to Singapore. It came from a third world port city, a dilapidated port city, to be a first world country, and that is how it was able to and that is how Africa was able to position itself. That is how Singapore moved from first world to from third world to first world in a record 25 years. Within just a generation, it was able to move towards being a first world city. So I think right now, what we need to be doing is to be able to have leaders that really can nurture. And this is why we need to fix our democracy. Our democracy is not working. We are electing people that have absolutely no idea of what Africa should be doing in order to be that shining city on the hill. And I think Africa, last great story was 700 years ago, so we can't do much more to be able to project Africa. And I think you have leaders such as Ibrahim Traore, who I think is doing a good work, and of course, then France wants to eliminate him. So you let me know on what you think. You let me know on what you think Africa can, or whether you think Ibrahim Traore will be able to save Africa. You let me know on whether you think Ibrahim Traore will be able to save Africa. And I think we need more leaders like Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. I think he is a reincarnation of Thomas Sankara, and I think when we do that, then Africa will be going to great sense. So you let me know, what do you think about Ibrahim Traore? So you let me know in the comment section. So bye for now.